Welcome to the first ever The X Button Reacts. This is Alejandro, and with me, my friend Paul.
What's up, guys?
We are the co-hosts of the X Button podcast, and we have decided that since we usually just record a podcast once a week, sometimes we miss out on big news as they happen, and sometimes when we record, they're already outdated. So good thing that this week, Nintendo just happens to drop the big one. So, Paul, what did Nintendo just drop?
Nintendo decided to reveal their next model of the Nintendo Switch. Unfortunately for all of us who actually care about that, they didn't actually listen to us. But let's go ahead and take a look at that, because I haven't actually looked at this myself. I just know what it is. So,
all right.
Let's
so
see.
This was serendipitous. So here is the trailer for the new Nintendo Switch that they decided to stealth drop on us this morning.
Nintendo's very strange about the way they do these things.
Absolutely. There it is. So as you can
right.
see, it looks the same, right?
It looks identical.
But is it though?
I mean, it's wider. And unless Metroid is very different, I would say it's playing exactly the same. So 6.2 inch, overall 7. It is wider because it kind of gets rid of a lot of that black bordering.
Mm-hmm. There's Pokemon.
Why is this man just standing in his hallway?
Right? I would never go play
sit
this.
Down on your couch, you
right?
loser. All right.
There's the wide adjustable.
I will
stand.
say that is better, because if I didn't use mine like never, it would have snapped. Elizabeth, my wife, had to actually get a metal reinforcement piece that goes on there, because otherwise it would have snapped. Enhanced audio. Okay, so
my thing is the stand has always been a weird one for me, because it never feels, at least in the current model, it just doesn't feel that sturdy. And you can't connect the thing if you want to charge it, so it's not the ideal thing. So there's the new dock that now has a wired LAN port.
Like, that's going to be good for competitive online work, but if it doesn't change what you're actually trying to accomplish, like the speed, the frame rate, all of that good stuff, I mean, you're only going to benefit from your own Wi-Fi.
Yeah. There's Ring Fit Adventure. Did you ever play Ring Fit Adventure, Paul?
I did. I went really hard on it for maybe like a month. Maybe a few months ago, me and Elizabeth both went crazy on it, like daily, and it works you out.
Yeah, I've never been able to find a copy of it. There it is.
It looks smoother, I'll give it that. It does look very nice, but
there's all three
as
of them.
we have. So now, did we get confirmation that what we didn't see in the trailer, like it doesn't exist? We're sure that it doesn't have any of the actual performance updates at all.
Yeah.
Or did they just not focus on that? Yeah.
So here's the thing. Here's the rub. So for everyone that maybe has not listened to us before, if on our previous episodes of the X Button, which, by the way, if you're interested, you can find the X Button podcast in our channel right here. Don't forget to like, share, or subscribe. Yes. And it was, I think, a month ago that Bloomberg was the one that they announced. Basically, they announced this machine that it was going to happen. Mm-hmm. And the thing is that they had announced that it was going to have a bigger screen, which is what we saw there.
Yep.
But it was also going to be able to output to 4K and have something that NVIDIA chips have called like DSLR or DSLL. I don't remember what it's called. I'll put the actual wording there on edit. And that was supposed to be kind of like the equivalent of the PS4 Pro or the Xbox One X.
Right.
It turns out
actually it would compete with
Yeah.
other last gen consoles.
So it turns out that Nintendo, instead of following their previous MO about like what they did with the 3DS when they eventually released the new 3DS, which was a more powerful machine, this
That
one
received no support.
yes
Continue.
yeah, basically only received like I think 2 games that were like
2
exclusive
games.
to it, and that messed up the whole way they offered their library in the machine, so they probably didn't want to do that again. This time they're only offering the bigger screen and the new LAN port in the dock, and basically the stand, and it also has 64 gigabytes of memory inside of it. So if you buy like a normal Switch right now, it only has 32 gigs, so you would have to buy a memory cards, which are pretty cheap relatively. Those
They're
SanDisk,
very.
yeah.
I actually bought one. I think it might have been on sale, but it was like, even without it, it was going to be like $30 for 128 gigs, something like that. And why would I bother with anything else, you know?
Yes, but the rub is it's still the same hardware, like at its base, that the Switch has had since 2017. So basically nothing this has other than a bigger screen if you're in handheld or wanting to connect everything directly to LAN on the dock. Those are like the only true quality of life additions, but this is still basically the same machine. It's gonna run the games the exact same way. The games are gonna look the same if you plug it into the TV, and it's gonna cost $50 more. So this is gonna reach $349.99, and as you saw in the video there, the release date is on October 8th. I'm gonna test you what game is coming out on October 8th.
Metroid Dread.
Yes. So the Metroid game that they announced at E3 this year, coming out the same day and date with this machine. But the thing is, it doesn't really matter to get this new machine because it's not gonna basically really improve anything. It's not like you getting a PS4 Pro that's gonna give you more resolution, maybe better frame rate, any of that. And
there's
the Bloomberg,
no reason outside of flexing rights, and if you're really on the go, I guess. They really did the exact opposite of what people thought and wanted out of them, because we wanted something that's going to boost the at-home possibility, because they already have the Switch Lite, which benefits more from actually staying mobile. But now it's, once again, it's just the screen on itself, enhanced audio, the adjustable stand. But like the only thing that really helps home gamers is the Ethernet cable.
Yes, because basically the only ones that get benefit of this are people that want to take it mobile. And in that case, like if you want to take it mobile, it's like,
I respect, but at the same time, if they're not going to fix certain things like Joy-Con drift or the absolute,
he uses the same Joy-Cons basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's identical to what it is. I was gonna say as well, just the fact that it's kind of delicate, frankly, without an actual screen guard or really taking care of it. I mean, I've watched people playing the game, the Switch will just slip out from between the two Joy-Cons unless you really have a good grip on it. And especially, not even mentioning kids.
And to me, basically, like, I like the idea of the Switch as a mobile thing, especially because they no longer have a DS or a Game Boy. It's a little too big for my hands sometimes, that after a while it just feels
the Switch.
It maybe it's just because of the ergonomics that is kind
of. I might have giant sausage fingers, but I feel like I envelop it after.
Yes, the only way that works for me is if I'm laying on bed and I'm laying it on my chest and just like or put a pillow there and just lay it there. But on, like, let's say the PSP or the Vita or even the 3DS, I could always hold it, like not always have it be standing on something, and it will always not feel like my hand needed a little rest after a little bit. So this machine basically has the same size. The thing is that the Switch square at the middle is basically the same. Like, they haven't make that thing bigger. They just make the screen within it bigger, but it's still the same machine. So,
I was wondering why it looked the same when they were holding it, but I was like, I know this is supposed to be bigger, and then it wasn't until they put it down that I saw it was just the border was extended.
And now what this does is now that Nintendo has 3 units in the market. The base model at $299, the Switch Lite model at $199, and now this OLED version at $349.99.
all three of which do the same thing.
Exactly. And I'm like, what happened? Like,
I'm
what,
just like, just from the idea, like by itself, leaks aside, like I was telling you in our chat, if you take all of the behind the scenes out of it, it just seems like a pretty boring, like, okay, I guess they want to really focus on the mobile side. They really want to get that out there. But what I'm wondering is what happened with all of those leaks, the interviews, the talks about all of these very specific details that somehow just got scattered to the wind.
yeah, to be fair, this was like mostly the thing that made the existence of this new Switch like a reality for us that were in the outside was the Bloomberg report.
But then where did they get this information from?
Obviously, you're being journalist. Yeah, being journalist, you always have your inside sources. That's kind of like the part of the job. They know who to talk to. They know who to contact. That's willing to spill the tea. So it does make me wonder. It's like these sources had mentioned the whole 4K DSLR thing, or
you don't say something that specific unless you have some good grounding on.
So did they out that they were already working on maybe the new machine, like a new successor to the Nintendo Switch?
Yeah,
and
that's
the
what
wires
you had posted, I think.
Yeah, and the wires got crossed with this other one, this OLED version that is just as incremental an upgrade as humanly possible. And or there's also the thing, what's been happening, Paul, with the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X this year?
We can't find them anywhere.
Yeah, because there's a shortage, specifically the silicon shortage to create the chips that make those.
Oh, you think that might have affected it?
Yeah, maybe what happened was that Nintendo was planning maybe on doing an upgrade. Maybe that was the plan, and then they were like, "Oh crap,
there's
a silicon shortage." And here's the thing: like the momentum of the Switch right now, it's to the stratosphere. I think I saw a graph on Twitter that it's on pace to hitting the 100 million units sold faster than any machine before it. So even faster than the PS4, which at the time was the fastest selling machine to reach that milestone. So maybe
I don't know if you remember when COVID started and you couldn't find Switches anywhere because nobody was buying anything else. They were just buying the Switch. And I think that only got even crazier as more and more of these games would come out. I'm just glad we're past the COVID 2020 Nintendo rollout, which was Animal Crossing and nothing.
Yes, and Age of Calamity and the Paper Mario and I don't know what else. A bunch of indies. But maybe that's what happened. Maybe the plan was always that. They have made the machine, they already had the design of the machine. They knew what the machine was going to do. And then they saw the shortage and they were like, oh crap. Because the thing plaguing Sony right now is that there's such scarcity. Everyone wants a PlayStation 5 despite not there being like 100% a reason to really own one just from games alone. And if Nintendo knows, if Nintendo knows to deal in something, is with demand. And
they are very good at creating demand.
Yeah, and not only that, like Nintendo's also the expert in artificial scarcity. So that to like intentionally underproduce to like create that sense of FOMO so people can then buy more. But then with the Switch, that strategy kind of went out the window because the demand was so high that they couldn't quite toy with their customers that way.
Right.
So
they had to actually do what they were already artificially do.
Yeah, or what they would artificially want to do to make that machine be more, for them to sell more, because they did that with the Wii. They intentionally underproduced the Wii to so that people, whenever they saw one, they would want one, and that worked for me because I wanted, like, for people that would listen to our podcast, I had mentioned that I've been one to want a PlayStation 5, and it's been so tough to try to get one from the infinite scarcity, the stupidity of the website system and how you can acquire one, the scalper situation and all that. And just imagine the Switch that's already a hot thing already, then trying to put a new one that's maybe better with a silicon shortage.
Yeah.
I think maybe Nintendo saw that and they were like, this could be a disaster. We already have what we need with the old Switch. So let's put it out there. Maybe the newness of it, because it's just a new version, will be enough to, and just an extra $50 will be enough to I'm gonna say this, like justify it for people, and then pairing it with a new game. That tends to sometimes create one-on-one, but it's also disingenuous because it's not even that much better of a machine. It's just Nintendo being Nintendo again.
I'm consistently lowering my expectations, and I am still disappointed by the way Nintendo does things. You and I, we finished our last podcast episode out with this statement, and it was,
which you can listen to it now. Our episode 10.
We are willing, and the world is willing to pay for the same games over and over again. We are willing to pay ridiculous prices for a little bit better of hardware, and they refuse to follow the line of interest and decide we're going to go our own way. You're going to align yourselves with us. We don't care what you think. And it blows my mind, and it somehow still works for them.
It's insanity, and they keep getting away with it. Like even when you can ever think with Nintendo, things can get crazier, or like crazy stupid, or crazily befuddling.
But then that's how they end up doing the crazy awesome things that they do.
Yes.
And I think that's what fuels them, because they know if they make 5 missteps, they just need that one good decision and it'll cover them for the next 10 years.
Yes, and the Switch continues right now to be like such a huge monumental success. And it seems that train is going to keep going, which now brings the question, like, are they willing to just stay with the Switch and then eventually do the proper upgrade as previously reported? Or is that report now like signaling the end of the Switch life cycle and moving on to maybe a Switch 2 or a Super Switch, like whatever the sequel, like from the NES to going to the SNES? Like, is that maybe the route that Nintendo would rather pursue? Because they already saw what happened with the new 3DS and how tepid the actual response to that machine was for what they were intending, and the way it split its market. So
I don't think I'm ready to deal with the demand creation of them announcing a sequel. I feel like I'm just getting used to having this Switch, which ended up being, once again, it was a Smash Bros machine and a Zelda machine for me.
And a couple indies now.
And a couple indies. I'll give it to them. They were able to really present indie games on a right platform, and for all of the other developers out there that couldn't put it on an Xbox or a PlayStation, they sought out PC and the Switch, and it worked really well for them. So I'll give them respect where it's due. Just please, Nintendo, give us more of what we want.
Yes, do the logical thing. Just do it logically. Like, don't always make us like squirm or like be befuddled all the time by your business decisions. Like, oh man, good thing that we get to make this our first reaction at the moment. It's something that happened.
Yes, so, and hopefully we'll be here for plenty more afterwards.
Absolutely. Thankfully, like, this summer has proven to be quite a busy one. So
that it has.
More reacts coming soon at a later date. And if you want more of us, you can always check our podcast DX button, available in our YouTube channel and also in many podcast services around the world. Almost everything except Apple Podcasts. You can find everything at anchor.fm/XCape Media, which is our umbrella that houses this podcast. You can always watch it here. And you can also follow us in the social media handles that are going to be on screen. And remember, press X
to play.
See you all later.
Adios.